And a lot for these kids is creating a safe space for them to open up. And so our whole point is to validate them. Most young people, are, you shut the fuck up, or if you're a fuck up, you're a fuck up, mom and dad, whatever, but what we're teaching them is that your experience, whatever that is, good, bad, and indifferent, has tremendous value.
Your host of Knocking Doors Down, Jason here. Of course, I am a recovery and mental health advocate. I've struggled with my own anxiety, depression, and addiction. In turning my life around, I want to talk to others that have done positive things with their life, finding their purpose. And I'm knocking doors down with Gene Bowen and Jack Bookbinder. They are the founders of the nonprofit Road Recovery. It's dedicated to helping young people battle adversities and face their struggles while teaching them comprehensive life skills. Gene has a background in being a tour manager for various performing artists, most notably the late great Jeff Buckley. And Jack's background was in artist management, and he worked with Jeff Buckley as well. Road Recovery's programs are awesome. They offer full access opportunities for young people to create, plan, present, and do their own live performance events and studio recording projects as well. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary this year, and it was a real pleasure to speak to these two gentlemen. While you're checking Knocking Doors Down out, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you get a lot out of this podcast, share with a friend. And don't forget the archive of interviews we have. Bam Margera, Brandon Novak, Kat Von D, Charlie Sheen, Edward Furlong, Kelly Osbourne. The list goes on and on of amazing guests that have been on the podcast, sharing how they have found purposeful lives. Speaking of purpose, how about a lifestyle brand with purpose? 5150 LTM. That's right. Not only is it a lifestyle brand that can fit whatever it is you're trying to achieve in life, but they give back to the community. And you, the listener of Knocking Doors Down, get 20% off every time you shop at 5150 LTM. All you have to do is use the code KDD20 at checkout and get 20% off. And how does 5150 give back to the community? Portions of the sales benefit the Carlos Vieira Foundation. Their three amazing programs: the Race to End the Stigma, the Race for Autism, and the Race to be Drug-Free. More on the Carlos Vieira Foundation, go to carlosvierafoundation.org.
Yeah, we're celebrating 25 years this year as a nonprofit 501c3. 25 years, can you believe it?
Fully audited.
Yeah, many years in a row.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, and people don't know how tough, the nonprofit industry is, and and people have a perception, and it's like, no, most of us get a very small paycheck, if none at all, and we're doing it because it's something we love to do and help other people.
Yeah, and also people think, oh, you're nonprofit, so just money just comes to you, and there's you put out your hand and it's filled, and then there's all the Jack oversees all the administration side of it, and maintaining the status of 501c3 is not easy, and it's which is good. It's good because there's a lot of reasons why it should be regulated and all, but and then also with what we found in 25 years is with social media and especially us coming from the music industry, where artists have, instead of giving to causes, they themselves, for business side of it, they've created their own foundation. So there's a lot more trees in the woods amongst, and with social media, there's less and less going around. So it's that in itself has its challenges, surviving as a nonprofit,
let alone in the economy that we're in right now,
matched by that and COVID, and
2020 was a real deep, dark year for us, when all our programs had to shut down in person. Fortunately, we had our board chair was connected with a technology company, Cisco, and we hit it with the live streaming with the kids, and got it going.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, it was bad for me. I actually had a relapse during it, and
wow.
And so many did. and so
Yeah.
many did, and now we're coming out of it. And I'm guessing, you folks there at Road Recovery work with the youth. I would think there would be more wanting to come to your doorstep now than ever.
Yeah, interesting enough. So just to set the record, so um, the organization was designed to make it possible for people in our industry, from very, very famous people to those working behind the scenes, specifically in the area of live performance and in recordings, who are open about their adversity. So whatever that is. So basically on the founder's side, I'm sober from drugs and alcohol addiction. I just celebrated 31 years.
Awesome.
Jack's a type 2 diabetic. So that's where both of us kind of were working together in the industry, and then having this common connection of we both have these things that are going on in our lives. And what we found was that the power of that a lot of the skills that I use to deal with staying away from active addictions, the isms in my life. Jack is also able to apply a lot of the same principles in dealing with a chronic illness like diabetes, and also gave me a lot of appreciation, because as far as I'm concerned, I'll take the hand that was dealt me versus what he has to deal with on a daily basis just to make it to the office to oversee this operation. So that's how the organization was built, was to allow that voice from our industry of people, whatever issue they've been through, to be able to give back and work with at-risk youth, utilizing their personal life lessons and learned and adversities they've overcome, and the solutions that they live in, matched with the God-given talents that they have in the areas of creativity. And to your point about, interesting enough, so even in the wake of an opiate crisis in our country, COVID really, people usually would say to us, "Oh, you must have had a lot of kids dealing with drugs and alcohol." Actually, I think at the tip of the iceberg was anxiety and depression. And we work with the gamut of humanity, from youth that are living in rural poverty, a lot of poverty, to all the way to inner city urban gang violence, and everything in between. So that depression, anxiety, obviously is a launch pad for we're using stuff to try to deal with that. But in terms of like out and out, seeking drugs at the forefront, interesting enough, like that wasn't the primary that we found with a lot of the youth. It comes part and parcel,
right?
But interesting enough, like I think the overwhelming the fact that our entire society stopped because of COVID really created this place where anxiety, depression, those things really were at the forefront, which was so apparent that it wasn't too difficult for young people to just sort of identify what the heck is going on, specifically because they were dealing in they were in a box, they were in isolation. And that's where the glass is half full, the lemons turned into lemonade for us, because what we were able to do, which is obviously the work we do is driven by in-person and hands-on. But because of the support of technology, which went from Cisco, WebEx to now Zoom, and because of a lot of the staff that we have with Road Recovery, also we have a whole bunch of engineers, technically savvy music industry people, both musician side of it, but also just straight ahead engineers, recording studio engineers, live sound engineers. We're able to get inside the mechanics of these platforms and tweak them so that they could actually work better for us when translating creative content and working with youth, whether it's through instrumentation or sending beats back and forth or whatever, but using this of really tweaking the technology to make it more useful for us. Which again, we went from kids being in their homes, which was a whole other ball of something adventure that came about because a lot of kids at first wouldn't put on their cameras. A lot of that was trust because it's, this is sort of this artificial kind of reality we're working in. But what we also discovered out of it was some of these kids were living in such poverty, or they wouldn't turn their microphones on, and we discovered there were kids living in abusive households.
Yep.
Which then, by building these relationships with them, this stuff started to come out. Which then, because we don't work on an island, so all of the organization always attaches itself to resources, whether it's wherever we're partnering our programs, so that we are very much stay in our lane. We are not a treatment program. We're an adjunct where we work in tandem, in collaboration and partnership with those who are resources that can help young people. So we stay in our lane. We don't say we're not a pig, yet we smell like a pig and look like a pig and everything. So, we all stay in our lane. For me, there's only one drug addict and alcoholic in the world, and that's me. And, and your business is your business. If I can help you, great. Right. But, I'm not here to diagnose you. I'm not here to treat you. I'm here to work from my position of I, and the same with Jack and everyone else. So that's where we built this model 25 years ago with the understanding that the philosophy of serve them the meat and slip them the vegetables. So the meat is the attraction to access for these young people to the entertainment industry, to work with people who make their profession is. And then in that, we're not an arts program. We're not teaching kumbaya. We're here to teach communication skills, coping skills, and life skills. That's really what's in the stew, in the work that we do with the young people. So in the case of the issues that have come up, or issues that come up, whether they're just a bad day or some very severe issues, we have resources at our disposal immediately to work with the young people to find solutions to whatever they're dealing with, whether they don't have any food, they need clothing, to social services, to interventions toward medical treatment of any kind, or educational treatment.
Yeah. Jack, let me ask you a question. I've not on this platform spoke with anyone with type 2 diabetes. How has that translated for you in being helpful to other people? Because like Gene was mentioning, this is a daily struggle. I mean, Gene, I don't know, I might get up in the morning, I say my serenity prayer, I do some breath work, I do some other things to keep myself from turning back to the bottle. But Gene, I mean, Jack, this is in you, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something of a different nature altogether.
Yes, when Road Recovery was founded back in 1998, I was not a diabetic. I was borderline diabetic. People in my family had it, and I had to be careful, right? But I've also was living a life in the music business, and that's babysitting artists day and night, as you know, a couple going out on the road once in a while, and not really concentrating as much on diet, So what happened is we partnered with with another treatment, substance abuse treatment organization, and we would have a program in their basement. Our programs are always in the basement, and I would wait until the first part of the Road Recovery programming would end, and that's the peer support meeting where everybody shares their ups and downs. And I would wait by the door, and I'd hear, almost like this chanting going on in the end. And then sometimes I peek through the door, the keyhole. I see people like holding each other in a circle, and it was just very like, oh my God, right? And then, unfortunately, was visiting someone who soon became my wife overseas. Crazy fun vacation, but not thinking about diet. And when I came back, my primary doctor said, "Oh my, you have over 10.0 A1C. You're fully, diabetic, and you're going to go down." That really scared me. So I think I went on this crash diet for the first couple months, 2, 3 months. And then Gene made a suggestion. He's like, Jack, why don't you come on into the peer support meeting? And I was like, oh no, I'm not in recovery and all that stuff. But Gene's like, just listen. Sometimes that's what he suggests. Just listen, and that's what I did. I listened, and then I started kind of figuring out how you share to the other young people and staff members in the peer support meeting. And more and more, I kind of got honest with myself, because I was going through a turbulent moment, because when you get diabetes, you really have to change so many people, places, and things that you do. And the more I would share about my own adversities, kids who were primarily in recovery from substance misuse, they were hearing it, and they were giving me feedback as well and suggestions. And wow, could you believe, like, I started road recovery with Gene, didn't have the adversity of diabetes. And then in the end, over, now I'm like 18 years diabetic. It saved me, right? Yeah. Because I'm constantly making decisions on, what I'm going to eat, meal plan. Am I going to shoot the insulin or not? I got to tough it out, right? And then, of course, lowering stress, and, they're like, got to sleep. There's so many things you have to do to keep on that tightrope. I don't want to fall off the tightrope. I fell off once, 2 Decembers ago, and I almost died.
Wow.
So, it really happens quick. But I think road recovery has saved my life, because I have to show up. That's what Gene always says. You got to show up for the kids. You got to be present. Yeah. And for the amount of work we're doing the entire state of New York with youth programming, I certainly have to do my part to keep the ship rolling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing interesting, the reason why road recovery is open to dealing with, as far as our staff, any and all adversities, because it levels the playing field. So for the population of kids that Jack was talking about, they were specifically kids that were in an outpatient program coming from specific, obviously other issues, but primary drug and alcohol addiction. So they were in early recovery out of an inpatient setting. So what they started to report to us is that, unbeknownst to them, looking at Jack, wow, Jack looks like he's got a normal, happy life. And then started to understand what goes on in the life of someone with diabetes, which then they started to say, well, maybe the grass is kind of green on my side, because God, what he's got to deal with on every day, so he doesn't lose a limb. And that the other message was, don't judge a book by its cover, because you could be passing someone anywhere that's a cancer survivor. You don't know. And the fact is that none of us is free of something. We all come to the table in this thing called being human beings with great stuff, but we also have adversities that we have to deal with. Interesting enough for me, I'm 59. I'm in good shape. I ride my bicycle every day, but I also, I should have died from my addiction from back then, both people, places, and things that I put myself in. So, being sober 31 years, I cherish this gift of life. And so, of course, with change in my metabolism, and looking at, what I'm putting into my system, I take a tip from Jack. When I go into the supermarkets, I don't go down the cookie aisles. Like, I don't go down. Because basically,
that's the funnest aisle. It's tough.
I know, but I don't know about you, but what I've come to learn is that when sugar, and there's a study that just came out of Princeton, this scientists had this idea that there's a direct connection between sugar and addiction, whether it's heroin, specifically heroin. They've tied the two together, the dependency and the detox. So I've realized, like, if I have one is too many, 1,000 over and up. Yeah. One Oreo cookie is the whole pack, and it's just like that. So I've taken a tip from him where I just don't go down those aisles, I just don't. If I go down the cookie aisle, I'm only torturing myself. Just like if I go down the liquor aisle, or I go, So, all of this is applicable. We can all learn from that. That's the message, is we all have our own tricks to how to live this we're, a happy, balanced, joyful life where we're trying to achieve here, so we can all learn from each other, no matter what we're all dealing with.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, and when I talk to a lot of young people, I do speak at some schools around here, share my story a little bit, and then just have conversations with them on addiction and mental health and whatever issues they're facing that like I say to them, you guys are being bombarded with a bunch of shit that, 20, geez, how old am I? 26, 7 years ago of high school or whatever, whenever I graduated, I wasn't faced with. Similar, but I wasn't faced with, and I often state in different words, but the people, places and things, those that you have around you, your places, your community, all that, whom you're choosing, and then the things, what you're going after, what you participate in, your attitude towards other people. And I don't know about with young people, sometimes it's hard to go, wait a minute, I'm not the only person in existence right now. Well, no. And if you can get outside yourself, you're going to be a little bit better off. But for sure, I see that commonality no matter what for a good, healthy foundation of life, your people, your places, and your things.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I mean, adolescence is all about sucking your thumb. That's the role of us as parents, or as, it takes a village, is to help them get out of that self-centeredness, to navigate, to become these productive members of society and think outside, just beyond, what I want, what I need,
Eventually we get there.
Which is repetitive. That's with us. It's, their brains, scientifically, their brains aren't developed. So, you got to repeat. It's a lot of trust the process and being patient, but with structure,
And I think that, it's hard for anyone. We see it now with adults in abundance, and I'm thankful. I don't know about you, Gene. I'm a 12-step guy. I think it should be taught in every high school. It doesn't have to be, as far as this is what, if you fall to addiction, it might look like no, this is a good foundation of stuff here. And so for me, it's important to get out of my way and remember, hey, if I give it away, oddly, stuff comes back. And I find that's the hardest thing to kind of connect with kids. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable. Yes, some people might judge, but you're going to find that one person that doesn't. And that's a genuine, authentic connection.
Absolutely. And that's where, for us, that's the stepping off point is, we have people from our industry who are open about that. And when one person is open in the conversation and create a safe environment that I'm willing to share, my struggles and my solutions, all of a sudden it's over time, it's building trust, and that doesn't come instantaneously. But, we worked with kids who in the judicial system where they have no trust in anyone. We spent 4 months just eating pizza with them. That's it. We didn't do anything else in our program, just sat and ate pizza with them week after week. And it's really, at the end of the day, which is our mantra, is just show up. Just being present is everything. After that, it's all gravy and cherries on top, but it's really just consistency, showing up, walk the walk. It's the action that creates that place where kids are going to start to open up, and you're going to start to be able to see what's going on and help them.
Yeah. Well, and I think I applaud you and everyone on the road recovery team for that, because I see it so often with young people. They've, as you're mentioning, that might be some of those young people you work with, that their home is a terrible place, their school is a terrible place, and then they're getting involved with legal issues, a terrible place. Like, they've never had any institution that has shown them that they can trust an adult in any way, shape, or form. And that trauma to carry, is tough. Sometimes, their nervous system's so freaking activated that, giving them just the time to sit down with someone and have pizza. What an amazing reprieve. Something that a lot of us just take for granted.
Right. And a lot for these kids is creating a safe space for them to open up. And so our whole point is to validate them. Most young people, are, you shut the fuck up, or if you're a fuck up, you're a fuck up, mom and dad, whatever, but what we're teaching them is that your experience, whatever that is, good, bad, and indifferent, has tremendous value. And we want to, let's create that so that we can take that message, or you can take that message and we can present it to your community. So that sort of ripple effect. So we're validating them as humans, validating their message as important, and saying to them that really it's you that are going to save each other's ass here. We're Charlie Brown parent. We're wah wah wah. But your message collectively as young people, and what we're going to do is help you organize it in a way and basic and create it, or help you shape it into something that is outstanding, is of the caliber of our industry standard. And then we're going to give you a platform to present it on, which is state of the art in terms of if it's a live performance, and point to you as your experience that you can share. Both you have a place to speak about it, but you also have this piece of art that you've created about it to share with your community and speak to your community. And that's a lot of it is, boil all this down, Jason, and what is it? It's just love. It's all it is. This is not rocket science. This is nothing. This is the human connection. This is what this is.
Yeah.
We connect, we care.
As you gentlemen know, that, like, for instance, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's community. And my firm belief is aligned with yours, that the only way we're going to get out of this, the opioid crisis, the fentanyl crisis with the youth, mental health issues. I mean, we could go on and on, as we're going to have to love ourselves the way out of it. That's the only way. It's the only freaking way.
And solution. You got, we deal with kids that are, dealing with gangs, and it's like, well, why not? The gang is providing a family, providing a community, right? And you got to give them something that outweighs that. You got to give them opportunities, or show that they have value, that there's another way. Because the odds, like you said, between the devices and that false reality,
right,
and the pressures of society, global warming, there's no 401k plan, there's no whatever, there's no longevity. What are you going to do as far as a career? You got all that working against you. You got to be able to show them that they have value, and that, look, we could do something together.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a rough world for these kids. It's a rough world.
It really is. And sometimes disheartening to just speak with some that see that they just have this belief. They've attached themselves to the story about themselves that there is no purpose for them whatsoever. And I don't think there's anything, well, there's things more heartbreaking potentially, but that's just incredibly heartbreaking to me, to see a young person that just sees no intrinsic value in themselves.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's getting more and more and more. And like you said, social media, a great one. I don't know how you and the staff talk about that. I try to let these kids know when I talk there, a lot of what you're watching is not reality. Don't compare your insides to other people's outsides or false appearances.
Exactly.
Yeah. We try to kind of reshape the use of social media at Road Recovery. We, because we're working with these youth clubhouses around the whole state. They're doing all these workshops every week. And 3-4 times a week, we're posting the outcomes, the creative outcomes, or
work
in progress of these kids in social media. And we're tagging them if they want to be tagged. And they're like, whoa, we're on their social media. And, it really shows them that they're part of a bigger collective. And then when we get to the end of the season, and then we do the big production on the big stage, sound, stage, and lights for them. It's sometimes they only figure out what they're involved in after they go through the final performance, which is incredible. They're like, oh, now I get it, and then they can't wait for the next cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very big on social media, but trying to show the output. That's the hope.
I just had a brilliant comedian on, Josh Johnson. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. Amazing special on Peacock, Up Here Killing Myself. But he also did another stand-up. He's talking about the internet and social media, and he's like, it can be a really bright place or a really evil place. And it's tough with these kids to sometimes, have a conversation of distinction about that.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, I get it. Maybe you want to follow this person because there's something inspirational there, but it's okay if you aren't them. You are the only you, and getting that across is it's like hitting your head with a fucking hammer sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Like no, I want to be that person. No, you're you. It's okay.
Right,
Be
right.
you.
Yeah.
You
It's
know.
okay.
Right,
You should
right.
be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a tough world. Again, I don't envy it, but I want to jump back if you don't mind. I had a 20-year radio career, so I'm a music industry dude, and I love it, but I got to kind of know. I mean, you gentlemen both worked with some really interesting people throughout your careers. Did you ever perceive that this is where you would have headed?
No, I grew up, it was live music, from the age of 10, and I chased it. And that was the thing that, calmed the voices in my head, was being around it, and found my way to the backstage door, and then a roadie to becoming a tour manager. And I love nuts and bolts, and I love, the chaos of all the variables of what you entail. Uh, and so I thought this is, I'm home, this is it. But drugs and alcohol played a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really came down to me being 28 and going from tour managing and rising through the ranks from a roadie to a tour manager, to my addiction took me to working for the stage union, turning a wrench, building stages, and all my friends who were on those arena tours are wondering, what are you doing? And that was the half step away from me dying. So when it came to change, and thanks to the help of friends and stuff that were around me, I gave myself over to the white coats. That my best thing. There was no blame game. I was 28. I knew I was going to die somehow, some whatever. Part of me wanted to, probably because it'd be a lot easier if it just by mistake. But that's all I knew when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself over to the white coats, and they told me I was done with the music business. And I said, okay. And I followed the treatment plan for the first couple of years. And then Jack and we actually both went to NYU, but we never saw each other at NYU. But there was a professor at NYU who worked for RCA and such, and he connected us. And at that point, this is back in around late 80s. So I had been working from the early 80s with some of the Bay Area musicians, offshoot bands from the Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna and Papa John Creech. So that whole psychedelic scene. And Jack was working with Greg Allman, managing Greg Allman, and then helped put together the Allman Brother reunion in '89. Anyway, that brought us together to working together with Greg and such. That back in 1990, Jack's a manager, and then they're working on that, where I was on the road and he was in the office managing. And then I crashed and burned in '92. I got sober, walked away from the business. And then Jack got a hold of me in '93. I was working in the classical world. You get out of your own way, and things all, somehow it all works out, right? So I got offered a job to work for the largest classical management company in the world, Columbia Artists Management, to do tour logistics for all the major symphonies and ballets. But I didn't have to go out and execute the tours. I just put all of it together, handed it to a tour manager, which worked perfectly because it didn't get in the way of my aftercare, my therapy. It was like, wow. But along that line, so this is now late '93, Jack finds me and says, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, since we last worked together, I got sober. I'm working in the classical world. Don't really like it. It's kind of boring, blah, blah, blah. And Jack at that point had just signed Jeff Buckley. And he can tell a story from there. So that brought us back together.
Gene was the best tour manager. He wouldn't pinch your artist, take your way. That's one thing you had to worry about. But I want to make it clear, I was part of a management team,
right.
And we all had our NYU roots. NYU Music Business Technology program is what I came out of. and worked for a few different internships, Warner Chappell, and worked for Talking Heads Management. And, I knew I wanted to get into management, but wanted to do kind of boutique management. And then the chance to work with Gregory, they called him the Big A. And there was this opportunity to get Allman Brothers band back together, the Seven Turns tour. And so I learned all about touring and got to work with Gene. Gene was hired to be just with Gregory, right? And then another big management company managed the other guys. And that was a great experience. But then we lost Gene for a couple of years, Right. And then I remember, well, I won't go into details, but we're managing Greg Allman, Ronnie Spector. A lot of things happened with them. And we said, you know what, this alternative music was really on the rise. Sure. I myself was in an alternative rock band in downtown New York at the time and really into the scene. And this opportunity to work with such a talent, Jeff Buckley.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The vocal ability, the songwriting, the guitar, the whole package, right? And he was such a nice guy. And so very special. And we wanted to get the A-team together. And he just got a big contract with Columbia Records, and that's when we decided to manage him. And that was a 2.5-year tour and campaign for Grace. Grace was his big debut full-length album, much more popular in England and France and Australia. US, not so big. But he was definitely considered like one of the artist that was going to be a legacy for Columbia, sure. Much like Springsteen and Barbra Streisand. They looked at him in that sort of lens. Fast forward to 1997, when he was trying to write the next album, and then he had this tragic accidental drowning on the Wolf River off of the Mississippi River. Got the call from Gene. I was in New York and was talking with the other management team partners and overseas. It was just like the worst thing ever. And the worst thing I say, not because I lost the client, it's because I lost a friend. Yeah. And, he's so full of life, but we know how he was, right? Yeah. We know he wouldn't smell the roses, he'd eat the roses, right? He saw that beautiful, summer night coming up and he wanted to take a swim, and unfortunately, tourists would go into that area, the Wolf River, and they didn't understand the tides and everything can pull you down. So somebody was accidentally drowning every year. And when that happened, just devastated all of us, and I needed that summer of 97 to kind of figure out, wow, what am I going to do? Because it's so devastating. Then one thing that I know your show gets into is purposefulness in your life.
Absolutely.
My father was a longtime journalist and a senior editor for a major New York paper. And he instilled in me this feeling like, you want to give back. You want to do some service. Shouldn't have this self-serving life, and he championed all sorts of causes in the press and righted a lot of wrongs, I feel. And, Gene came back, I came back from Europe and had this very memorable meeting with you on the balcony of our old office. And Gene's like, I want to work with you. I want to, pursue road recovery. I just want to do it with you, even if it means leaving everything we have right now with the old management company. And I said, heck yeah, and, we figured that out, purposefulness, that was really the driver. And we knew it was going to take years and years of no pay. No, we didn't do media interviews for like the first 10 years. We just did like a bunch of shows those first 2 years. Many artists in recovery on the stage. They were standing room only shows. People would be out on Stanton Street, right? Remember the big lines trying to get into our shows. But then soon after that, we got into more program focus, working after school and workshops with kids. One first was a foster care agency. So that's sort of the early game plan. We didn't give up music management. In fact, we still have a for-profit company that we keep for consulting and such, and continued some management. But really, there's so much going on with Road Recovery Foundation, especially in the most recent years, being the statewide representative for after-school programming with all these youth clubhouses, that it's just it's beyond our wildest dreams, and it's just you want to keep it going, keep it going. It's tough running a nonprofit.
Yeah, well, I know I don't run it, but of course we are aligned with the Carlos Vieira Foundation, the gentleman that it helped me launch the podcast. And yeah, one of our biggest programs is the after school one, giving the kids free places to go. As we know, that time after school is the easiest time to go and to get in trouble. And especially, I mean, gangs are everywhere, and of course where we're at, it's primarily for the most part Hispanic gangs, but as we have a lot of migrant workers and stuff in this area. But I want to jump back to something, Gene, where you were talking about gangs and where people have asked me, like, I don't get it. I'm like, I do. And what do you mean? I'm like, well, so these kids aren't participating in sports, let's assume, right? No, probably not. Okay. Well, but if you did, what would you wear? Well, a uniform, right? So you look like everybody else and that you're on a team.
Right.
What did gangs usually do? They use the same colors, the same kind of clothing. They know and they feel a sense of belonging. And a sense of belonging quite often gives us purpose. So unless we're shifting and maybe doing some brain rewiring here to show them there's a better way to feel a sense of purpose, I think we're going to continue to butt up against so much of this stuff. And
also the economics.
Yeah.
So you've got a kid in an area, and what opportunities, if it was school, maybe education is, maybe they're a single household, parent household, trying to make ends meet, multiple siblings. Well, I can go work for McDonald's for whatever, or I can go be a part of this and bring in a lot of money. And conversations we've had with young people, it's like, well, I'd rather have this, and yeah, maybe I only live to be 18. Maybe I die, but I'd rather do this, and I'm providing for my family and look what I'm getting. So give me something that's an alternative to this that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what you got to offer. That's what we're trying to do is provide them with something that's greater. Of one of the things that we didn't understand early on. So, a lot of the young people, it's one thing if you're in a controlled environment like an institution, right? But then I was 28 when I got clean. So change people, place, and thing. All right, that was challenging, but I was an adult, right? But for young people, it's impossible. They got to go back to their schools, their neighborhoods, everything like that. We had no idea, but what our youth started telling us was that they were able to get out of sticky situations when a friend would show up, or there would be a group of people and they hand them a joint, or they'd say, let's go rob that bodega. They would say, well, if I do that, I can't go to road recovery. And what's going on at road recovery might be, well, I'm in the studio and I'm recording a song, or a lot of the youth will write songs with an artist in mind, and that artist will then guest on their track.
That's cool.
Or James Hetfield from Metallica is a big supporter. So when Metallica comes through, he invites the kids come, and they spend it's not a handshake. It's like an hour, 2 hours with him, talking about life, talking about what's going on. So what the youth started to tell us is that when they could say to their friends, if I get high with you or I engage in that, I can't go to road recovery and I can't do these things. And what they told us was that then the tables got turned, because their friends were like, oh, that's cool. They didn't pressure them. And then in some cases, their friends were like, well, I want to be a part of that. And then they were say, well, you can't be getting high and coming to this. So you got to change. And we didn't realize that if you give them opportunities that outweigh the peer pressure, that's how they're going to be able to survive in these toxic environments and get out of those hard situations and have the respect of their friends and be able to navigate these waters to get traction, toward with these new coping skills that they're learning, or whatever the change, this radical change that they've had to undergo. Now they have a pathway in which to do it. They've got their friends supporting them. And then when we would do these celebrations, their friends would show up, and there would be the wow factor of like, wow, it's so cool to hear what you created and see it on stage and all that. Yeah. And that's the difference. You can sit on a couch and talk, but unless there's an action behind it, it's bullshit. And with young people, if you don't engage them in the first 30 seconds, they're gone. They're
Yep.
gone.
Yep.
But what we found is if you engage them and you show up each week and you teach them that and you hold them accountable, they want structure. They want to get their ass kicked. They want to know, because that message to them is you have value, that we care about you. That's why we're wondering, where the fuck are you? You're late. That's why we're in. And if you can provide that, they're unstoppable. I mean, we've been doing this for 25 years, and I can't tell you, if you have faith in them and you show up for them, they will show up, because in the end, they're not going to fail themselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Once they feel that within themselves, they're going to show up for themselves. And of course, everything else goes with it. But when they own it, if they take ownership of it, that's it. That's the game changer right there.
Yeah. I love it, man. That's too awesome. Kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the rat park experiment.
No.
And so back in the day, especially when it came to addiction. So, as always, testing on rats because of similar genealogy or whatever it was. So they would put, one rat in a cage and give them regular water. The other one would have cocaine in it. And of course, the one that had cocaine, that rat would keep going and die. And they went, oh, there you go. It's just, there it is. That's how addiction works. And then there was another experiment came along that went, that doesn't sound right, because they're in isolation. So they got a bunch of rats and initially just started with the cocaine water. And then eventually they put regular water and wheels and let them all intermingle. So they had rats to, cohabitate with, have sex, the whole thing, jump on wheels, everything else. And eventually they all stopped going to the cocaine water because they had connectivity, purpose, community, food, shelter, all these inherent things that people are fighting over that I just don't get it. The other day I help out this homeless gentleman who's an addict in my area. And it flashed me back to when I was a kid, like, why don't they just get a job or something? And it's like, yeah, because their resume is really in order. It's like, come on here. So, yeah, I just think it's really great what you gentlemen are doing. And that, boy, if I lived in New York, I'd be coming to volunteer my time. I think it's just beautiful what you're doing.
Well, hopefully 25 years, we built this the slow, arduous way, like a bluegrass band out of the back of a trunk of a car. So, there's a whole bunch of research that through our grants with the U.S. Department of Justice and National Mentor Resource that NYU, UConn, and National Mentor Resource are doing on a 3-year study on us. And we're hoping that this is going to be the breakout year, because a lot of the folks that are involved with us for the last 25 years reside in California, in the LA area. It's just, it's LA, Nashville, and New York. And there's a lot of folks that are, our allies and work, supporters out there. So we're hoping that this year and what it'll yield in the 25 years and the recognition and such and what we're trying to build, that we can plant a stake out there. So
awesome. I hope so. We need more like programs like you folks are doing. That is for sure.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, I usually wrap up with some final words and some random questions. But if you guys want to tell people about Road Recovery, how to find out about you guys, maybe get involved, donations, where can they go?
Sure. Our website, roadrecovery.org. There is a Get Involved tab. So it has a list of 7-8 things: volunteer time, make a donation,
swag items.
Yeah,
donate swag items. Like us on social media, everything from write a massive check all the way to just like us on social media, spread the word.
And we are very active on social media. Instagram is @road_recovery. And then Facebook and Twitter is @Road Recovery. We also have a great YouTube page, youtube.com/Road Recovery. We film most all of these finales that the kids we are servicing now at the youth clubhouses present. So we live stream them, and it's archived on the website. along with a lot of our celebrity engagement. We do, as Gene mentioned, we've done some song collaborations. Members of Duran Duran, Tom Morello did a song with us.
Wow.
Slash did a couple great songs. So we have videos for all that, and many, many more. Yeah, we encourage people to check us out online.
Absolutely. You got to tell me that Darren McDaniel got involved. I mean, he's on the board.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He shows up for everything. Mention, hey Daryl, we're doing something with the kids. Where? Tell me where. And he shows up in his pickup truck.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I'm going to be speaking with him soon. So as a kid that grew up on Run DMC, that's going to be like one of those, okay, I'm talking to Run DMC.
He's the man. He's
he
the
is.
man.
All right, guys, these are just kind of for fun. Some random questions. Of course, as always, brought to you by my sponsor, 5150 LTM. Couldn't do the podcast without them. If you could have dinner with any one person, living or not, who would it be?
That's so easy.
Oh, it's yours, yeah.
John F. Kennedy,
Really? Why?
because I have been investigating his assassination far earlier than the creation of road recovery. And every kid that pretty much comes through road recovery gets quizzed, who do you think did it? So that's a little side project. And I even got married in Minsk,
Wow.
where Oswald married Marina,
Yeah.
and
How many shooters?
I don't want to
How many shooters?
I don't want to admit anything. I'm in a public forum. They're watching me, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I got married at Minsk, right where Marina and Lee Harvey Oswald got married, and I was in the Zag's office, and I remember very quickly saying, to my wife, who's Belarusian, oh, I'd love to get back there in the files and see the fingerprints, because there's always a second Oswald, but
Right.
she's like, oh no, please don't, they may not allow the marriage, so that's how crazy I get. So I'm sorry. I mean, I'm having dinner with JFK.
No, Jack, don't apologize. Actually, I could probably have a total 1 hour or 2 hour conversation with. That's the stuff that fascinates me. Lots of people. You're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, how many things though have I said that seem to turn out right? Like I don't get.
Yeah.
I'm not like tinfoil hat crazy about it, but a lot of it's like, come on, some of this stuff is common sense, guys. Let's not just the media and government would never lie to us. Oh, sure, okay.
Right. Remember, what can you do for your country, right? So
yeah, exactly. What about you, Gene? Who would you have?
We're at, I guess the one who comes to mind, because I'm really in the thick of we're trying to expand and fundraises. I love Mother Teresa. And the reason what I love about Mother Teresa was when she won the Nobel Peace Prize, which she would not accept, but when they told her you're going to get like $250,000, she said, I'll accept it. That was the only reason. And when they asked her, when all these world figures came to her and said, how do you do it? How do you change the world? She said, it's simple. You walk out your front door, you pick up the first body. That's how you change the world. And then you do the next body after that. And the other thing is that this little peanut was an ass kicker, and she got the leaders of the world to pony up to get behind what she was doing. And she had them, kissing her ass up and down about, and I would just like the humility and she was so true to her mission and stuff. So in this, I believe in a higher power. And so, a lot of the work we do, I stay in a place of desperation. And what I've learned in my recovery from drug and alcohol addiction is it's the most beautiful place to be, because when you're in desperation, that means you're open to hearing the information that you need to hear. So as many times that we have found where you feel like you're out in the desert and no one's listening, or things aren't happening, or the whole thing is going to collapse because we don't have the means to do it, and it's always at that place of desperation where the answer comes. So we're sort of in this place of 25 years. There's so much potential, but we're running this thing and we're not getting any younger and needing help and asking for help. And so that's why she's on my mind. Like, I'm talking to her lately, like, give me some inspiration, give me some help here. So
I love it. I love them both. That's awesome. The last song that you listened to on purpose, that you personally picked to listen to.
I put on the other morning. I'm a big Zappa fan. That was one of the main connections when Jeff and I met. He was a massive Zappa fan, and I put on the other day just to kind of get centered. Zappa's stuff is, you know, commentary on society and everything like else. He was always telling the truth. But there's a beautiful song on Joe's Garage, an instrumental, which is really very different from what Zappa ever did. Easter morning, Easter egg and Easter hay or something like that. It's a beautiful, beautiful instrumental. So I put that on the other day because I needed Frank, and I needed to hear that because it's just an absolutely beautiful melody, solo guitar thing that he added at that time. So that's what I was listening to yesterday morning, starting my day.
I'm going to write that down. I can't recollect.
On Joe's Garage.
Okay.
It sort of ends the record, and it starts off like there's a commentary throughout Joe's Garage. One of my favorite words is fuck. And it begins by him doing this little commentary, and he says the word fuck, and then it goes into this beautiful song. So what are you listening to?
Well, I was going to say Pink Floyd because 50th anniversary Dark Side of the Moon,
Sure.
But technically the last song I purposely listened to was Better Together. Better Together is a song that Gene worked with our staff and got different kids from all these clubhouses we're working with to come to New York City and record a song that one of our staff members wrote. And kids were, many of them never been in the recording studio before.
Yeah.
And they did the chorus, maybe hand clap, just something that, they can hear themselves on the recording. And it's a really terrific song. It's called Better Together. We're going to release it probably in the late spring. We go on Spotify and iTunes, Amazon Music. And we have a video that was shot for it showing the whole experience. And like Gene was saying, just, give them a project to work towards. And this was one of the few unifying projects where all sorts of different kids can get involved. I can't say the foundation that supported it, but definitely headed by a very popular musician, and we're extremely thankful for this opportunity. Wow. So look out for Better Together.
That's awesome. I love it. I was going to ask next favorite curse word, but Gene, you've already made that pretty clear. So what about you, Jack?
No, I know I cursed at the beginning of the podcast. I guess in the early days when I was dating a French girl, I used to say merde.
Oh,
I used to try to get out of, saying it in English. So,
well, I know what it means. So, even though my last name is French, my French isn't that good, but I do know that word, right?
Je comprends.
What's another fun one I like? Last random question. If you could have any one superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, balance.
Balance. Okay, come on, G. You can't say balance is for a superpower and not elaborate on that.
And I don't mean balance on the trapeze or whatever. I mean balance in life. Just you're talking to someone who got this idea. I wanted a flagpole and obsessed over it until I found the guys who at West Point, who's third generation, is in charge of all the flagpoles at West Point and for the military. I had to have that guy special flagpole in my yard. So, it goes from there. So yeah, balance in the sense of like, just, even keel and just,
Well, hey, I'm glad that at least you're not obsessing over the stuff we used to do that would have killed us,
This is true. This was true, though. I used to cop multiple times, right? Because the ritual of copping was, I used to have the letdown of copping. So, I'd go around the block 10 times, how I never got busted or shot or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm happy to be obsessing over a flagpole at this point.
What about you, Jack?
A superpower, something like an adversity eraser. That's what I wish I had, not only for myself to get rid of this horrible disease of diabetes that, they say 1 out of 3 are going to have it, in a few years. It's tough day to day, dealing with it. But we have our tools to persevere. But with so many kids that we're working with, and they all have these different adversities. So in a small way, maybe Road Recovery, our little nonprofit, can be that adversity eraser. But that'd be great to just snap your finger and do it. But as we know, it takes one day at a time, potentially years, to overcome it. And what's wonderful about being around 25 years at Road Recovery is those kids from those first 5-10 years, they're all grown up, they got married, they have jobs paying a lot more than what we make, and very happy, and you can see it, social media and all that. So that's the gift to me, being able to live long enough to see what happens with all these earlier generations. It just keeps going.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I leave you with the final thoughts. The floor is yours. Anything you want to lend, advice to people, maybe if someone's just out there struggling, if you were talking directly to them?
Yeah, that if you stay alive, we tell the kids this: stay alive, there's hope. If you're dead, there's no hope. And we believe in the power of that, together we can accomplish or do anything together, and there's solutions out there. And all you got to do is put your hand up and just say, I need help. And it'll come. And thank you, Jason, for this, because this is a beautiful gift for us, what you're doing, and this is a big help for us. So
absolutely,
thank you.
Thank you. Knocking doors down. Great
for us.
What a theme.
My pleasure, gentlemen. It's been a real honor. This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about.